Hi guys, Miss Rachel here. I know a few parents have recently been asking that I make a recording of my incorporation of the hand model of the trauma brain, kind of incorporating it in preparation for EMDR work. And so there's this really cool neuropsychiatrist called Daniel Siegel. He knows his stuff, and you can find lots of his stuff here on YouTube as well. He's got great information for parents and for children, but I love to incorporate what he calls the hand model of the brain. And so what he likes to talk about is that this is the hand model of the brain, just an easy way to talk about how the brain works. And I love to talk about how it incorporates understanding trauma. But what he talks about is a couple different parts. He says this front part of the brain is right here behind our forehead. I like to call this front brain. It is also known as our prefrontal cortex. He talks about the amygdala. We'll pretend my thumbnail right there is the amygdala. This is kind of what makes our emotions dance and go wild and crazy sometimes. And then he talks a little bit about this being our brainstem and our survival or instinct area of our brain, where we respond with fight, flight, or freeze when we go into survival mode. After reading the book in therapy together, The Fantastic Elastic Brain, I like to incorporate some of the scientific information provided there as well. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how this front brain has a left and a right side, and how the left brain is very logical, makes decisions, it weighs out the outcomes of our choices ahead of time. This right side of the brain is creative and artistic, musical. This front brain is what makes us uniquely human and allows us to be a higher level species who are able to make choices and realize and learn in ways that is by far more advanced than the rest of the animal system. And then I want to talk a little bit too about how the Fantastic Elastic Brain book incorporated this area as being the hippocampus, or our memory system, right? And it's very unique that our amygdala, or what controls our emotions, is at the very forefront of our memory system, right? Here's where I also love to incorporate that, like with the movie Inside Out. At the end of the day, our brain is beginning to shut down and quiet for some rest. It shuts down the system and it sends our memories for the day down these tubes to our long-term memory so that everything can resolve for the day, right? Of course, there's also core memories that stick with us. But I will point out that if a memory does not process and resolve and go to long-term memory, where in long-term memory we tend to remember things more topical, right, rather than specific and detailed. If it's super specific and detailed, then that memory is still stuck up here in short-term memory. And for trauma individuals, we quite often live our life in short-term memory with information that our brain was not able to process and resolve. And we live like it was yesterday. And so things might happen that causes our amygdala to kind of freak out because a memory that's stuck in short-term memory is triggered, and we act like what happened is happening again now, right? And Dr. Siegel also there talks about how when our amygdala gets upset, we flip our lid, which means we no longer have access to our front brain region where we're making good and wise decisions. And also, like, think about it, that right brain, the creativity, the music, right, the art, those are a lot of our coping skills. And so we quite often can't access even our regulation skills to be able to help ourselves calm down. And then, of course, left brain, think clearly again, right? And so he calls it flipping our lid. We don't have access to that front brain, and it leaves us wide open to our survival brain in the back, where we will fight, flight, or freeze. With kids, I often reference that as fight, run away, or freeze. And if you think about it, all of our kids do that at some point or another, especially our trauma kiddos that we have. But all individuals do that. When we are fearful for our lives, or we are fearful for danger, then we will respond with one of those responses: fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so just to incorporate too a little bit as we prepare for EMDR, you've already received some EMDR education, but one of the things that EMDR is doing in this situation is it's engaging our left and right brain with that bilateral stimulation, the buzzers or the eye movement, right, or the tapping that we might do. And it's helping the brain process what's happening right now, or process what is stuck in short-term memory so that it may resolve to long-term memory, so that we have much less overwhelmed and stuck up here that will respond in everyday moments as fears that happened so long ago but feel like they just happened all over again, right? And so we have less dysregulated kiddos when we have less stuck up here, and that's resolved to long-term memory. Doesn't mean when it goes to long-term memory that we've forgotten about it. It doesn't mean that the memory is no longer there, but it is definitely much less detailed and super clear, as though it just happened, right? And that's our goal. That's our goal. I often love also to talk about how one of my favorite ways to help an individual get out of survival mode and to access that front brain again is through connection. Connection engages some of those heartfelt emotions, right? But also through that right brain, the music, art, creativity, right? Dance. Those are all beautiful ways to help someone arise out of that survival mode that they're in, and help them re-engage that front brain, putting everything kind of back together again, and then being able to finally be able to actually talk about what happened and learn from the situation. But until everything is back in place, we just don't learn any lessons, and we just don't make good decisions. It's just important information to know. Thanks for taking the time to watch. I hope everything makes sense. If not, I'm happy to talk about it more in our next session. Thanks.